Hello, everyone. Welcome to Uhandisi Talks. My name is Marion Golda. I am a civil engineer and a host, and also the founder of Uhandisi Talks. And today we are having a interesting conversation on global opportunities for engineers and how it is that engineers can position themselves to get these opportunities, and for those who have been wanting probably to explore opportunities in other parts of the world, uh, how is it that you can position yourself? How is it that you can be competitive globally? And I just have the right person for this conversation, Engineer Dennis Muyonga. Thank you, Engineer Dennis, for joining us. Engineer Dennis works as a principal engineer at ACOM. I'm not going to try to even water down his experience, his vast experience. I'll just have him introduce himself and tell us about what he does.
Okay, thanks, Marion. So my name is Dennis. As has been mentioned, I work with ACOM in the Gulf, and I've been working with different firms across the globe. Just before this, I was working with a company called Robert Bad Group in Dubai and in KSA, and before that, I was working with Subana Jurong, and before that, I was working with SMEC in Australia and SMEC in rest of Africa, as they call it.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Fantastic. So I mean, we've already just seen like how your experience has been. So
Yeah.
before we go to like how all this happened,
Yeah.
can we just get like a bit of background? How like your schooling? We just want you to paint a picture for us how this all happened. Your schooling,
Yeah.
where did you school, and then where did you first work?
Okay, so probably let's start with the backstory. So
Mm-hmm.
my my dad used to work in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs,
Mm-hmm.
and so he used to travel a lot, and so I was always curious about the the rest of the world because he used to come with trinkets like artifacts and clothes and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
So then I joined. I said primary in a school called Kilimani.
Yeah.
It's on Gong Road,
Yeah.
and those sides for Kilimani. And then I went to Sunshine Secondary School along Langata Road. And then I did a bit. So initially used to wait 2 years before you join campus. So I was in Strath Uni for the 2 years. Then I joined engineering at UN. From then I within engineering in UN. So the backstory behind that was I used to like fluid mechanics. There's a
Mm-hmm.
lecturer called Ngare. I left. I don't know if he passed away. I was made to understand, which is quite unfortunate. But he was quite instrumental into why I chose to do what I currently do. So rest in peace, Ngare. And then so when I was doing my fluid mechanics, everyone was talking about a firm called Gib, and I'd never heard of it. So one day I just walked into the offices for Gib
Mm-hmm.
and asked whether there are jobs. They told me there are no jobs. Then
Okay.
I talked to a lady called Elizabeth. She was at the door. I told her, "Is there a department for water? I just want to see it." And then when I went there, I met with the director. I just asked him. I was curious. He told me, "Which projects are you guys working on? Can I help even remotely, even if you guys are not paying?"
Mm-hmm.
That's how I got my first internship in fourth year with Gib. Just walked in, and when I finished my internship with Gib, I I was working in a project in Eastlands, and the director was like, "You know what? If you're looking for a job when you graduate, there is an opportunity in this company." So me, when I finished uni, I was excited. I'm going to give no interview needed, whatever. Then when I finished, I went to give as usual, and I was told the director who was there had left. And I was like, "Now what is this?"
Oh.
So so I was a bit disillusioned.
Mm-hmm.
But then I asked when I finally found out that he'd left. I went to say hi to a couple of my friends. I met a guy called Steve. He
Yeah.
told me that that director had gone to a company called SMEC. And now me, I'd never
Mm-hmm.
heard of SMEC.
Mm.
And so I went on Google and I realized, okay, it's pretty decent.
Mm.
So what I did was I started looking for the director again. I went to the SMEC offices, I asked whether there's an opportunity. And yeah, I was told, okay, yeah, there's work if you're willing to work. And I started with I started with proposals, which I thought were boring.
Yeah.
Proposals and just CVs and some work which I didn't feel like was. I found it quite boring. But eventually I got into design.
Mm-hmm.
And then within that design process, I went for a seminar. I think it was hosted by Atkins or something.
Yeah.
And they were talking about Beam.
Mm.
And that's what really like thrust me into the international platform, because I realized how much I didn't know.
Yeah.
And so I started practicing Revit, Civil 3D, InfraWorks, Navisworks. I was every evening. That was in 2013 thereabouts.
Yeah. Yeah.
Every evening after work, I was trying to figure out what BIM is and how it integrates with my work. And then I within that time, because I realized that in Africa we were using mainly 2D designs, and so I was
Yeah.
quite this. I was wondering, there's a big dichotomy between what the rest of the world is doing and what we are doing in Kenya.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so in that time, I talked to a really close friend of mine in South Sea. He's called Oredo, and he had gone. He had just come back from a scholarship at University of Twente, and so I asked him whether, in Kenya we believe that if you get these scholarships, you know someone on the other side. So I was like, you
Mm-hmm.
got this thing through an application? He told me, yeah, I did. I just applied and I got the job. I got the scholarship. So I went crazy over these scholarships. I started applying day and night. I
Yeah.
applied through Rotary. I applied through the Japanese Council. I applied. Eventually, I got a scholarship through the Australia Awards. And then when I was applying for my scholarship, I took a tier 3 university. But when you get selected for a scholarship, you can always readjust. So
Okay.
what they did was I chose UNSW after that, and so that's my history. So basically, for my education, it was Kilimani, Sunshine, Strath, University of Nairobi, and then my master's at UNSW.
Okay. Fantastic.
Yeah,
Up to where you are, I
yeah,
think, speaking for Kenyan engineers,
yeah,
um, uh, it's almost like where everybody is. Yeah. And then you
yeah.
talk about this, this, was it a conference that you went to where you go get introduced to BIM, and
Oh, it was
then,
this what's it called? It was is what's it called? There was a CPD course which was being offered, and it was at KICC. So I went and Atkins were the ones who were presenting over BIM and IoT, Internet of Things, and
oh,
that was in 2013.
so it
And
was here in Kenya.
yeah, it was in Kenya. It was in Kenya, but it was what had happened was BIM hadn't been integrated into the Kenyan designs as such. Most of the designs we're submitting were still just 2D drawings and booklets, and they hadn't evolved into clash detection and avoidance and stuff like that. So in 2013, I was feeling like we were already too behind.
Mm-hmm.
Mm,
Okay. Okay.
yeah,
So we see how then you come out of, so when you leave Kenya to go and study.
yeah.
So were you working at that time also? Were you working also, or did you plan to go and work in Australia? You got your scholarship in Australia, or what
Oh,
happened?
so when I got a scholarship in Australia, I was like, I made sure. I mean, I told you I went for the best engineering uni in Oz. It's called UNSW, and so I found out that where the university is located in Sydney and where the SMEC offices in Sydney are located is quite close. And so what
Mm-hmm.
I did was I talked to the regional director at that time, Chike, and I told him I need to get a job in Sydney.
Mm-hmm.
And so I sent an email to him. Eventually, it went to the director for Water Africa called Leon, and Leon sent a letter to the SMEC office in Sydney. Now, but there was a bit of delay because I was about to mobilize and we still hadn't gotten any confirmation. The water department had said that they don't have work, and so I went online. Luckily, that our at that time it was Skype. Our Skype was linked. Yeah, Skype for
Mm-hmm.
Business was linked with the Sydney office. So I sent them a message and told them I'm coming. That said, if there's an opportunity, I told the HR if there's an opportunity in any department, I'd be keen. Specifically dealing in water. So I
Yeah.
was eventually I was taken by the hydropower team and tunnels in the Sydney office. So we were working on Snowy Hydro 2.0. So that's how I was able to juggle working in Sydney and studying as well.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right. All right. Sorry. After school, like what I'm trying to understand here is,
yeah,
um, did you get any challenges getting work in this in SMEC Australia?
yeah,
Because what I'm trying to get to is the
mm,
qualifications that we have. Like there's this notion that maybe you'll need. I know there is the international professional bodies and the
yeah,
international, you know. So,
yeah.
did you get any issues with your Kenyan degree? Did you get any issues getting work in the Australian office?
Okay, let's be honest. The reality that's there is that there's a perception as to our qualifications. Yeah,
Hmm.
but it's all about how you package yourself. So, for instance, uh, I understand what you're saying. You might be afraid to apply for work overseas, considering that you might not feel like your degree is recognized. However, one thing I want to demystify is that if you don't try, then the answer is always no. As in, you cannot reject yourself.
Exactly.
There's a HR somewhere or a talent acquisition whose
Yeah.
job is to shortlist you or longlist
Yeah.
you, and then your job now becomes making the cut. But
Yeah.
typically, what I've observed in the international market is they look for skills. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm,
Okay.
yeah.
So that wasn't quite a problem for you. That there was no challenge with that. So now, when
So
you feel, uh-huh.
I didn't get any challenge in terms of my degree. I mean, and I've always believed if I get a chance to interview, they'll be able to tell that there's a competence that backs the degree, and more especially because
Exactly. Mm.
most engineering programs across the world are 4 years, and the Kenyan program is 5 years, so it's not too much of an issue for people.
Okay. Okay.
Mm,
That's actually very encouraging.
yeah,
That's very encouraging. Because now, what I wanted to ask you again was now because I noticed you've registered with Engineers Australia, the
yeah,
professional body.
yeah.
Uh, so I do. What I wanted to ask you was also the importance of that. Which professional body you register with, and how it maybe like opens you up to global opportunities. Does that happen?
Okay, so first I need to put I got that membership this year, and there's up until this year I've never needed it as such, but it gives you credibility when you're trying to get into like big multinationals. So that in terms of consulting, global consulting, there are tiers of consultants. So there's tier one consultants who usually go for giga projects. The net worth is usually about billions of dollars, upwards of $10 billion. Yeah. So
Mm-hmm.
those ones typically they want you to have even if you've done your undergrad say in Kenya, you
Mm.
have to double down and try and look for a university that has global appeal. And also they'll typically want you to be accredited either with the ICE, Engineers Australia, or something within the Washington Accord or
Mm.
Dublin Accord. So there's a bit of scrutiny. However, what I'd
Mm.
encourage you is that it's not a limiting thing. If you have the skills here, what I've observed is these guys need competence.
Yeah.
They really do need you to do the work. There's no one who's going to help you the work. So the
Mm.
thing is, all these other things are smoke screens. It's
Yeah.
just for credibility. It's like to get you through the door. Yeah. But
Yeah.
at the end of the day, for you to thrive in this market, you really do need to have something. You can't just coast through it, and you can't. I've noticed in Kenya we have this uh, habit of you amass so many papers. I have CPA, ACCA, DBIT, I have BBIT, I have. So by the time somebody's looking at your CV, they're like, I mean, what are you actually good at?
Mm-hmm.
So you need you really need to be good at something, whether it's in roads, if it's in water. You have to have that core competence that you use to ride on to permeate through this market. Yeah,
Yeah. Actually, that would be shocking, I think, to many
yeah,
because
yeah,
it's always been stressed to have to like be affiliated to some professional body, and
Yeah.
you were saying that you didn't need it for now 12 years.
Yeah. Up until even this year, I still don't need it. No one has ever asked me because, but I did it because I've
Yes.
always felt like I want to have it as a mantle. But for me, it's just an it. The
Mm,
the irony of the matter is that in my career I earned. So my issue working in Kenya was I always used to feel like the system was beating me down. It's like they're trying to pacify my competence. Like, you're too young. That's what they keep telling you. And so I was feeling I had to. It's like a hazing system. You have to get to a certain age to earn money that makes sense. But even at that age, the
mm,
money doesn't make sense because you have kids, you have responsibilities. When you look at the how much you're making relative to, yes, you're earning well, but you're still spending a lot of money because no responsibility has come in. So I was like, you know what? And then the Kenyan dream was get into a parastatal where you can probably get a decent per diem and stuff like that, and a decent salary. But in the private sector, the money wasn't as good as I anticipated. So this was a very conscious decision when I looked at the way the system was framed. I I was seeking out a place which would embrace competence at whatever age. So that means if you're 20 and you're good, you should be paid. If you're 30 and you're good, you should be paid. If you're 40 and you're good, you should be paid. The Without a lot of bureaucracy. That's what I'm saying.
okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Actually, no, I like that because you're now telling us that the most important thing is not all these like all the affiliations or the papers, but the skills.
It's the skills. The skills in the global market. What has set me apart is the skills.
Yeah.
I can tell you this. For me, I've always believed learning is. I'm always in a flux of learning. I'm always in a state of improving, self improvement.
Yeah.
So what happens
Yeah.
is I read the room. Like right now, if you really understand what the world is saying, is that eventually, if your job is formulaic or it can be done by a machine, you'll be
Hmm.
redundant. So,
Exactly.
so if you're not embracing that, okay, how can I integrate AI into my designs? You're going to be redundant in the next few years. In the next 10
Mm,
years, whatever you're offering might not be as significant as you may think. And so the it's almost like a shift in mindset that right now, if you're younger, you might have a lot more to offer the market than the older guys, sadly to say, because AI is taking over. It's everyone is from all the regions. That's from the Americas to Europe to Asia to the
mm,
Oceania to Africa. All of us are starting on a blank slate. There's no one who has a competitive advantage, like the beginning of the industrial age. So
mm.
at this point, you have your destiny as an engineer, whether old, young, middle, whatever, is really in your hands. Your destiny is how fast can I adapt to the changes that are happening currently. And anyone who cannot understand that is going to be passed by the times. Uh,
Absolutely fantastic.
yeah,
So you actually that was the next question I was gonna ask you,
yeah,
which was like some of the skills to cultivate. But before we
yeah,
go to the skills,
yeah,
Dennis, I wanted for you, you got into the international space
yeah,
through schooling, yeah? But
yeah.
then what I wanted to ask you was now what are the other ways like you can get if it's not through school, what are other ways that you can position yourself for these global opportunities
Uh-huh.
uh, apart from the school route?
Okay, so there's one thing that I'd like people to understand. Um, you need to first believe in your capabilities, and I know it might sound like it's obvious, but it's not as obvious. If you really ask someone what do they want to achieve in their life, probably they'll tell you they want to earn a lot of money or they want to be happy. But they can't put a finger to what they want to do with their life.
Mm,
Like,
mm,
what exactly do you want to do? They cannot state it. So for me, I always knew that. I was looking at the Elon Musks, I was looking at the Bill Gates, I was looking at these guys who have created opportunities across the globe, and I was not seeing an African representation. So the initial thrust was, I want to be on a stage where the metric for checking is your competence. No one cares about your race, creed, gender, whatever. It's all about what I can offer the market. And hence, I started applying to multinationals. Even when I was in Kenya, in 2012, I was shortlisted by Shell UK for a global graduate program. So I'd always been in my head, I'd always been approaching firms which have an international footprint. So basically, to answer the question, you need to embrace the fact that you want to work in an international platform. Once you embrace that, it becomes a matter of trying. And when you try, it's all a numbers game. If you make 5 applications, okay, you might miss all 5, you'll be disillusioned and you'll kill it at that. But if you make 100 applications, now your odds have increased. Yeah.
Mm.
And so that means that chances of you being shortlisted by these international firms is higher. And the one thing you need to know is you just need to be shortlisted by one international firm. And
Mm.
after that, your perception will be an international consultant, and now you can work across the board. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So the start would be wherever you are in your country,
Yeah.
get into get into the international firms that have
A
establishments
footprint.
in your country, yeah,
Fine.
and then
If you
from
can.
there,
If you can't.
yeah.
If you can't, you need to make a conscious effort towards application on an international platform. So you have to say, okay, I want to work for Shell, wherever the offices are willing to offer my services, or I want to work for Parsons, or I want to work for WSP. So it's almost like you have to hypnotize your mind to accept that you can get these opportunities in the first place,
Mm.
as in not to self-eliminate or to look down upon where you're coming from. You have to start from, if I am ambitious enough, I'll be able to get into one of these firms. It starts from a belief. Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
Mm.
Okay. Okay. What do you think about remote work? Do you think that can work? Like, because right now remote work is really picking up. Do you think that
Yeah.
can work in the engineering space? Like, you get the international opportunities, but then you don't really physically relocate.
Okay, fine. That's a good question, and it's something that I've been exploring. So right now at ACOM, we go to work. So all desks in ACOM International are hot desks. So when I'm in South Africa, I can book a desk there. I go to the ACOM office there, and even if I'm working for a different office, as long as I've booked it within the online platform. So it's something that companies are starting to embrace. Another thing is that because all the desks are hot desks, us guys are only required to be in the office for 3 days out of 5 days, and the other 2 days you work from home. So I know it's a slow process that's starting to pick up, but if you have to
Mhm.
think a bit about it from an international standpoint, it means that you can fly to your country on Wednesday evening, yeah, you
Yeah.
work there Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then you fly back on Sunday evening and you're back in the office. So it might not be, it's more of a hybrid system than just being within your home country. And giving you the perspective of Abu Dhabi, for instance, it's a
Yeah.
5 hour flight. So it means that if I leave the office at 5, I board my plane by 6. It means I can be home by 11. I work on the next day from home, and then I can board my flight on Sunday at 5 and then be in the office by 8 a.m. on the next day. Yeah.
Okay.
Mm.
And okay, okay, I see. That can actually, the hybrid system can work.
Yeah.
And now can you just talk a bit about, like, if you, from your experience, remote work opportunities, like full-time remote work opportunities.
Yes.
Have you
So
come across any?
right now, what I've observed is this remote work is mainly for happening for BIM, like modeling, as in the modeling aspect.
Mm,
So most work is being outsourced from Pakistan, India. Um, so it means that it's a reality. Um, and also, eventually, engineers will also embrace the same. But
mm.
it's all about payment. So how can you pay? So most companies are embracing this thing called workshare, where they
Oh,
take
yeah.
a chunk of money and they
Yeah.
just give it to the work that they want. within. So that's, I think that's how it's going to morph into. We engage, say, SMEC in Kenya. We give them a portion of the money we are being paid for the service.
Mm.
They do the work and then they invoice us, and then we pay them. But the work is actually being disseminated from a central point.
Okay. Okay. So it's still farm to farm. It's still
Yeah, it's still farm to farm. But what I'm trying to say is that eventually, this farm can be Runji in Kenya, or it doesn't have to be SMEC.
it doesn't have to be an international organization.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So it's what I'm trying to say is, once you've worked with this um, multinationals, you can go back home, set up your own thing, and then once you've set up your own thing, you approach the people you'd worked with. I mean, essentially, you're the face of your company, and so they'll be giving you the work, and eventually, it means that you've essentially now have a remote work experience, even if it might not be as you'd want it, like as an individual. You get it?
Mm, mm.
Mm.
Okay, Dennis, thank you so much. I mean, this far, I have to tell you, I had questions prepared for you on my phone here, but I can't look at
Oh,
them because,
yeah.
I mean, where the direction this conversation is going, I actually did not expect.
Oh,
I had totally different, you know, thoughts because I think even those who are viewing right now, by the way, if you have any questions, you can just um, type them on LinkedIn or YouTube. We'll be able to see them and Dennis will be able to answer. Because I was thinking you'd be here telling us you need to join this organization, you need to join this professional body, you need this qualification, you need this. And I was thinking, okay, whatever qualifications we have at the time, maybe they're not gonna be relevant globally. But now you have stressed on skills. Like all you need is to develop a skill, and once you're competent in something and you have what it takes, then that's all you need. I did
what
not
I
expect.
what I'd tell engineers in Kenya is, I mean, what engineering, your undergrad is supposed to give you the basics, but after that you have to be in a constant flux of learning, and that constant flux of learning is what's going to set you apart from the rest. Okay, we need to be honest. People have different will, different ambition, different intellect, intelligence, etc. So that means that where you might reach point A to B, there's somebody who gets to C, another and D, etc.
Mm.
However, I'm trying to say, getting into this international market isn't as difficult as people are trying to make it seem.
Yeah, yeah.
It really is just about how how well you can adapt,
Mm.
how well you can learn, and then if you offer utility here, you people, because especially in the Gulf, most people just talk about it. So you move from one job to the next off referrals. So the if you're really competent, someone will notice and someone will pick you up and move you to the next international or next big project.
Fantastic. Now
Yeah,
that this is so clear, so maybe now you can tell
yeah,
us in detail a bit of the story, how you moved then from, you told us you worked in four places. That was Kenya,
yeah.
then Australia, and then
Okay.
you went to Robert
RBG
Glasgow.
in
Yeah.
Dubai.
So tell us
So
until now.
in Kenya, I told you I started at Gib, and at Gib, Gib I was working in the water team, but I was an intern. I was a student intern. When
Mm-hmm.
I joined SMEC didn't have a graduate program when I joined it. So I joined as an intern as a graduate. So they're calling a graduate intern, which really makes sense to me. But anyway, I took it. Then after some time, I remember trying to act. I mean, at that time I was managing the server for a project called Northern Collector Tunnel, and they asked me to. I didn't have access because I didn't have a SMEC email at that point, and so at that time, the team leader was called Robert Nivergelt. He said that no, this guy needs to be taken in to SMEC system complete, and hence I became the very first graduate SMEC had. Now, with the after becoming a graduate, I did my math. I was like, okay, how long do I need to now get rich? Because I was thinking everyone was like, when I finish campus, the money should start. I'm a graduate from university. I
Exactly.
need the
Yeah.
money now. Huh? I need the money now. And then I was like, I did my math. I realized, no. This place, even no matter how many years, there are bands that it's like the consulting world have agreed on. And so you
Yeah.
can't just leapfrog as you might think. No matter how good you are, even if you're the best of the best, you
Mm.
can't jump those bands. So I realized, no, this place, this I cannot overcome the system. And so in that time I was moving between Kenya and South Sudan. I was doing some projects in Uganda, etc. And then one day the so my transition between Kenya and Oz was the first place. I got the scholarship through through Australia Awards. Thank you, Australia Awards. And
Mm-hmm.
then I went to UNSW, graduated top of my class. I was excited after graduating from top of my class. Now everyone's on LinkedIn. Guys, were headhunters were really keen on, because it's like you have a badge of honor. There's somebody who's verifying that you've worked in that side. So even
Okay.
in Australia, I was getting offered. Actually, when I finished my masters, these guys were like, you know what, if you want a PhD, come do it. But I was like, I didn't want to be an academic.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't feel like that's where my career was thrusting towards. So I came back to Kenya. And so when I came back to Kenya, I expected whatever I was earning in Australia should move to this side plus some couple of thousands. But I was told
Mm-hmm.
no, the economy cannot match the money that you're making in Australia. So I took a pay
Okay.
cut. Can you believe it? I was
Oh.
earning more without a master's. Then after finish my masters now, which you should be earning more, you're told no, you have to take a pay cut. Okay, fine. Then in that time, in when I was in Kenya, there was a project it sprung up for in Saudi Arabia called Neom
Mm-hmm.
project.
Yeah.
It was
Mm-hmm.
what it was. It's a giga project. It's probably the biggest project in the world. I stand to be corrected, but it was worth at that time $500 billion, which was I couldn't even fathom.
Mm-hmm.
So when I was initially completely, I wasn't supposed to be on the project. I was only supposed to design the spillway and leave. But there was a problem. They needed someone who had capacity in 3D modeling of earthworks, like complex earthworks. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's a guy who was at that time the geotechnical lead called David Hughes. He told the project director at that time called Sibyl that Dennis can work in 3D, complex 3D artworks. Remember, in 2013, I was there trying to teach myself Civil 3D, Revit, Beam, because I'd had it from Atkins. Now it's gone full circle. Now I have to use it in real life. Huh?
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, no issue. So I started modeling the earthworks in Kenya and the spillway. So the project director at that time was impressed and told me, you know what, there's an opportunity for you to come and work on this side if you're willing. Do you realize that this now is only based on my skill? She doesn't care about my degree, doesn't care
Exactly.
whether she doesn't even know whether I went to UNSW. She just
Mm-hmm.
told me there's a job. If you want to do it, there's an opportunity. She found out which university I had gone to when I was filling in some documents for my visa at the very tail end. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so she told me because of my university. Because so what happens is these guys give points from your masters, etc. So because of my university, it unlocked a bit higher points than the
Okay.
typical graduate from Kenya. However, it didn't limit some of the other Kenyans we came in because they also got in. So
Mm-hmm.
when I was there, I was given the biggest two packages. So I was given the Lakebed Earthworks to model and the spillway. The spillway was new. It's called an old spillway. It's quite new. Anyway, so I was able to excel in that until I got the Young Professional of the Year award for Subanajurong Global. And then
Congratulations.
at that point, Robert Bad Group was part of Subanajurong. So they're like, you know what, if you're looking for a job, there's a job
Oh
for you. So I moved within the same office, moved across. I got a job with RBG. My job was a hybrid job. So I was working with the Dubai office and the KSA office. The Dubai office was acting as the main office, and so we were
Lord.
getting most of the packages with them. So in that
So,
time,
Dennis, just allow me to
yeah,
cut you short there before you
yeah,
continue because we have
mm,
after Robert, but then we go to ACOM. But
yeah,
then you mentioned something that what kind of um, helped you get into Neom? You said it was Neom.
yeah,
Was your digital tools the
yeah.
3D model?
Just the 3D modeling. And the spillway, you had to design it on Hecras, but Hecras wasn't something that was new to me. I
Yeah.
had used it. I'd used it just after uni. So the what actually, so we were using something called, especially on this side, we use something called Autodesk Construction Cloud, ACC,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
BIM
ACC. Yeah.
360.
Mm.
So the I started using it in Kenya. I was uploading my models. I do a clash test. I compare them on Navisworks. I
Mm-hmm.
identify the clashes. I correct my models. I re-upload them onto ACC. It was iterative, yeah. And then we used to have
Mm.
a clash test report.
Mm.
So I check my models on my Navisworks, and then I send it to the beam coordinator. The beam coordinator checks it on ACC, makes sure that it's 20, signs it off. Yeah, that was before
Mm.
it was even being sold for approval. So I'm trying to tell you, for me, my career internationally has largely been framed of just learning new stuff and being abreast to new what's the rest of the world is doing. And I was, and it's not even, it actually might have come from, I was bored of these 2D things.
Yeah.
When I went for this when I went for the Atkins CPD course, I
Mm-hmm.
was so blown away at how much I didn't know in my industry. Yeah, you get it.
Yeah.
This is
Mm.
in 2013. I was just like, I couldn't believe that I was so oblivious of what the rest of the world is using,
Yeah.
and it's our standard. And actually, this thing went a bit further when now I started really getting into modeling, and I realized how much metadata has to go to it. And then the way Singapore has come up with algorithms to check the metadata and make sure that when you submit a model, it's approved by the state. Like
Mm-hmm.
they have an approval process for Subana Jurong have an approval process for when
Yeah.
you submit a 3D model. When they receive it, they can check whether it's compliant or not. You can imagine. And so I when I was leaving Kenya, it was from a point of understanding that the rest of the world is leapfrogging, and I'm feeling like I'm stagnant.
Mm.
Yeah,
Okay. I see. I see it now. So
yeah,
then, okay, digital tools.
yeah,
You have the skills.
yeah.
But then what I wanted to ask you is there is so much.
Mm,
I don't know if I have two questions for you. The first one,
mm,
there is just so much new things. There are
yeah.
too many new things that are
Too many,
happening.
too many. Yes.
So then, do you choose one and focus on that, or do you just have a general knowledge of everything?
Okay. So for me, what I believe is right now, most of the world, especially in the Gulf region and in Singapore, they have embraced 3D modeling as the standard. It's not something they are apologetic about, and they're not accepting anything less than that. So
Mm-hmm.
submissions go in with there's a beam coordinator or a beam manager whose job is to make sure that models are compliant, they're not
Mm-hmm.
clashing with other, if they're utilities, like in the case for the dams, the lake bed, etc. Their job is to make sure that the models fit like a glove. Yeah.
Yeah.
So one thing I would encourage any engineer right now finishing university, you have, using Civil 3D, using Revit, using InfraWorks, using Navisworks is no longer a skill. It's like having MS Word knowledge. It's a minimum requirement in the
Mm-hmm.
globe. Another thing is using ACC is not a skill. You can't put it even on your CV anymore. It's a requirement. You're expected to know them. Now, with that in mind, where now the skills come in is you need to, if I was a graduate now, you need
Mm-hmm.
to be exploring how your career is going to morph with the advent of AI. Actually, that is even me, I'm afflicted a bit because I know that some of the skills that I can currently hone are going to be irrelevant. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
they're going to be re-engineered. They're going to become something new. Why? You need to redefine yourself. It's like you need to dehypnotize. You need
Mm-hmm.
to learn that up until when AI gets to its fruition, I have to be in a constant flux of learning so that
Yeah.
I'm not redundant. Yeah. And I'm saying
Mm-hmm.
this applies to not only graduates, guys in their 30s, guys in their 40s, guys in their 50s.
Everyone.
Yeah, you need to be aware that there's something coming in the next 5 to 10 years.
Mm.
It's like a wave. And if
Yeah.
you're not alive to it, you'll be left by the wayside. even with a very strong engineering degree on your hand, it will be
Yes,
hard.
yes,
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 yes.
yes.
Yeah,
So Dennis, actually, I'm laughing because I'm just thinking of the digital tools that I have on my CV.
yeah. We've
I
listed
think
them.
they're the ones
Uh,
you've listed as the basics.
this,
So I need
this
to
is
learn a skill very soon because and AI, of course. So yeah, I think I get your point.
what
Just
I what I what I think Africa needs to understand is that the world is not waiting for us to catch up. It's moving.
mm,
And do you know what's killing me is that recently I was thinking about if M-Pesa was discovered by Steve Jobs or
mm,
by Warren Buffett, one of these guys who are at the top
mhm,
there. If it was discovered in the States, it would have been the standard. It would be like an iPhone. You get it? It would
mm,
have been the standard software. It would be like Facebook. You get it?
yeah. Mm,
But because it was developed in Africa, it was localized. It's tried to make inroads into other countries, fine, but you can
mm,
see that it didn't 10x its potential. It stayed right within its local environs. And so sometimes I feel like the reason why I went global was I've always believed that I need to be competing internationally.
mm,
Otherwise, if you're competing with you went to, let's say you've been the same environment,
yeah.
your perception is you only have one perspective. You haven't seen the how big the world can be, and also you never know. Maybe at that other place is where you're supposed to make that connection that counts. That's where you're supposed to learn that thing that is going to change the world. And fundamentally, I feel like our purpose, if you had to tell every human being, remove money from the equation,
Mm,
as in if you had enough money for the rest of your life for 10 generations,
yeah.
they would tell you that they're trying to help the human race. And so, how will you achieve that if your ideas are localized? Your ideas, you want to, your solution might only work within a very small radius.
Mm, mm,
Yeah. Yeah.
mm. Okay. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Dennis. Actually, myself, I think at this point I'm kind of like satisfied. I'm already having like some of the things that I need to
Okay.
work on. So that's
Yeah.
fantastic. Thank you also for bringing up the AI issue, which
Yeah.
is it's very important. I mean, first of all, it might be overlooked, especially for civil engineers. We might leave it for software engineers and whatnot. But just
Yeah.
the other day, I was actually trying to ask myself that question: What can I, where can I apply AI in structural engineering, civil engineering?
Yeah.
Have you seen it adopted maybe in your organization or maybe in your experience, places where you have applied it, you have applied it firsthand in your work?
Okay. Okay. So I started seeing AI in engineering with the metadata that's being. So I told you now, when you develop models, like when you develop models, there's some metadata that you put in the back to make it easier to understand. Yeah.
Mm-hmm,
It's called Kobe data.
mm-hmm,
That data, there's a way. The AI systems which have been set up by SJ, which is working under the government of Singapore, to check the metadata behind there, to check whether it's sufficient, and it gives you a score. And then that's what makes the metric for rejecting your model or accepting it. You get it? So
mm-hmm.
this case, the main SJ office has already started embracing AI in engineering. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. Now we can proceed. We were at
Ah,
Robert Bird, and then how we went, you got to
ah.
ACOM.
I went to when I was in RBG, we were working on mainly festivals.
Mm-hmm.
But I must say that they gave me a lot of wealth of experience in terms of stormwater. That's why I started using info drainage, and I started learning how because in mega infrastructure you
Yeah.
typically don't go into the nitty gritties, but I started learning how to size inlets like properly, and
Mm,
just the finer details of the stormwater management systems, not the mains. And so that became integral when I was interviewing for ACOM. They were using sewer gems for their stormwater management design. And so when I was explaining to them how info works and info drainage work, the way you model in 3 dimensions and
Mhm.
then export that model into Civil 3D, and it's picked up exactly as you have designed it, guys
Mhm.
were blown away. And so they were like, you know what, if this is what you can do, okay, come teach us. So for the first couple of days in ACOM, I was just teaching guys how to use info drainage. Like this is how you do it, and then this is how you spit out uh 3D model of your stormwater network. And this
Mhm.
is so by the time guys were, initially guys used to put it on sewer gems, you
Yeah.
put your invert levels, whatever, and then you export that and then you give it to a draftsman. But I was saying you don't need to give it to a draftsman. Do it in 3D from the outset.
Yeah.
And then when you're giving it to the beam coordinator, it's already engineered. Everything has been checked. You put your design criteria,
Mhm.
everything is 20. And so you realize uh, I came again to ACOM because of my
Mm.
skills. No,
Yeah.
no, it, it
Okay.
was back again. What are you doing? They have to know what you're doing. They have to know what you're
Yeah.
doing so I don't know how to stress this enough. My career, even the scholarship I got. Actually, the back story when I got,
Mm.
before I got my Australia Award scholarship,
Yeah.
I had applied to too many scholarship. Boy, Rotary. I don't know. I got even tired. I remember my wife was telling me, you apply to these things and they're usually given even before you get send the application. So I told her, okay,
Mm.
you wait. But the thing was, the motivation that actually secured me my scholarship
Mhm.
was about the drought mitigation. So I remember we were doing a drought mitigation study
Mm.
uh, for Kenya
Yeah.
in 21 pilot areas in 7 in Marsabit, Wajir, and Mandera. Okay. So I remember telling guys, wait, this thing you want to tell me happens every 5 years? They're like, yeah, every 5 to 10 years. So then
Yeah.
it follows a pattern. That means I can check the past and project that to the future. It shouldn't be difficult. I remember asking the team leader, if this
Mm.
thing happens every 5 to 10 years, like let's say in Mandera it happens every 10 years, it
Yeah.
means that I can tell when it's going to happen in the future. You get it? And now we can
Yeah.
make mitigative measures now before it happens in the future. Why are we waiting for it to happen? You get it?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I wrote a I based my thesis off that. I said I want to figure out a way to propagate this, to focus these droughts in the future, and so that I can be able to tell the government this is when the droughts are going to happen up until the year 2100.
Mm.
This is when you should start instituting drought mitigation mechanisms across Kenya. You get it?
Mhm. Mhm.
And so when I went to UNSW, I came to find out about global climate models and how you can be able to focus, as in there are studies which have been done to focus to the weather in the future. So basically, my only job was I get ground data from, let's say, the Met stations in Kenya. I compare
Mm.
them with what the GCM is saying in the past. I correct it for errors. I propagate it into the future and tell them this is the dates when I anticipate the droughts are going to happen. So I'm trying to say my life has always been about solving problems and gaining skills.
Mhm.
I typically am not a fan of amassing papers because I realize it's a smoke screen. It's a
Yeah.
smoke screen to hide behind incompetence. Like you don't want to learn the actual work. You want to put a paper there and present it to
Mhm.
someone, but you don't know how to do the thing. You get
How
it?
to do the
So
work? Yeah.
yeah. So for I've adopted a different philosophy. I want to know how to do the actual work in real
Yeah.
life.
Mm.
Yeah. And then if there's a paper, fine, it's a plus. But my thrust has always been I want to actually give you a solution that works. That's the difference.
Amazing. That's why we are engineers to
Yeah,
give
yeah,
solutions. I don't know where
yeah.
the papers came from. Really, I don't know.
Papers is an African thing. Paper in Africa, you want to say I'm a CPA, I'm an
Mm-hmm.
engineer, I have IT on this side. It's like you're trying to bombard the person who is seeing your CV with the things that you've ticked off. Like
Yeah.
I've ticked off IT, I've ticked off accounts, I've ticked off. But when the person, okay, not even the person, even you as an engineer. Imagine if you are to get a CV which has bachelor's in engineering, Masters of Engineering, Doctorate in Engineering, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
in
Yeah.
15 years, yeah.
Yeah.
And then the guy still has a CPA, has an IT degree. Okay,
Yeah.
you're going to ask yourself, what do you want to do with your life? And then the second thing
Mm-hmm.
you're going to ask yourself is, you've spent your life in academia, which is fine, but do you actually apply the skills that you've used in real life? Where is the real life correlation between the solutions that you're coming up with? And
Yeah.
so I feel like there's a big dichotomy between what Kenya has glorified. We need to glorify competence. Like,
Competency.
yeah, this person, all these things, even EBK, IK, the trust is competence.
Mm-hmm.
We want to validate that you know what you say you know what to do. Yeah.
Yeah.
These
Yeah.
other things are a smokescreen completely. Yeah. Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Personally, I have learned so much already, Dennis.
Yeah.
Everything is clear for me right now, but of course, I have more questions. But before we continue, we have two comments. One from Dan, who is saying, "Well done, Engineer Muyonga," and then we have another comment from Gift Elmanda. He's saying, "I'm a chemical engineer from Malawi. Just finished my bachelor's. Am I in the right place? I mean, this conference." Yes, Gift, you're in the right place. We're sorry for being too civil engineering-ish, but yes, you're in the right place. You're talking about how engineers can be position themselves to be globally competitive. And so far, Engineer Buyonga has been telling us about how we need to focus on competency, developing the actual skills and not the papers. So yes, you're in the right place. Um, so we continue, Dennis. Can you talk about networking?
For me, networking,
And
imagine, is your friends. Networking, networking, networking is not. We need to demystify it. It's not.
Mhm,
It's not about. If you go to someone and talk to them, they'll feel like it's choreographed. You don't feel like when somebody's sorry I don't know if I can say it here, but it's almost like you're kissing us. You need
mhm,
to you need to look for authentic networks. Authentic network means I've worked with you, you know what I can do.
mhm,
That's an authentic network. And now you leverage that to tell me, you know what, I was with you on NCT, I was with you on this project. Talk it. You know, you've seen my work. Yeah.
mm,
I need
mm,
to get into this whatever the current my current employer doesn't resonate with who I feel I am now. I'm
mm.
looking to shift jobs, and you, because we've worked together, you can vouch for my competence. I want you to vouch for me in your current employer. That's a network. This thing that you're going for a coffee date, okay, fine, it might work, but you're starting from so far.
Yeah.
First, you're starting from the point that this person has no clue who you are and what you can do.
Mm,
Second, if they vouch for you and you're not as competent as you claim, they're also putting their credibility in question. Yeah. And
yeah.
so they might not be inclined to vouch for you in that case. However, if you capitalize on the people you've worked with, you have a better chance of getting the opportunities because they know you. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That is actually a new point of view that I'm hearing for the first time today.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Yeah.
Um, and also now bringing it back to coming back to our the topic of our conversation today. Now leveraging on who you know, who you like the people who know you and what you can do. That is that also like if you want to get because you're talking on getting to the global space.
Mm,
So what you're saying is that going to look for these opportunities or connecting with these completely new people
yeah.
is not as effective as actually working with these people that you already know.
Yeah. It's true. So what happens? It's what you're saying is true. In reality, you have to start from which projects am I working on? If you're working on projects in Kenya, okay, it might not be possible because most of your connects are going to be in Kenya. Yeah.
Hmm.
So that's why again it goes back to you're looking for an opportunity. Start with send 100 CVs across the globe and see which one will bite. None might bite, but one might bite. So that's your first inroad. The second inroad is if you're lucky to be able to get into a multinational. There are too many in Kenya. There's Aegis, there's Aegis BCM, there's SMEC, there's Gib. And Gib is still Gib was from the UK. There's Zutari. There
Hmm.
is Which other farm is there? There are too many. There is a ACOM has a footprint in Kenya now. Huh?
Okay.
So the you start first by, if you're competent enough, go there, put out your application, put out an application in these farms and see whether they'll bite. Definitely, if they have a global footprint, they have global engineers in their farm. Chances are you're going to interact in some way, shape, or form with these global engineers. And with that, they're going to put responsibility on your head, and your job is going to be to deliver. If you deliver, now you deliver one project, two projects, 10 projects. Okay, now your credibility now is increasing, and they start
Mm.
having a belief system in you. And now when you tell them, is the other, because they'll move the global the global consulting firm is too big body, so they'll move from ACOM to Jacobs, or from ACOM to WSP, or
Oh
from
yeah.
ACOM,
Mm-hmm.
or from
Mm-hmm.
SMEC to. So in that transition, look at the connects that you'd made in your employment. Are they in a position of influence? Some are directors, principal engineers, associates, etc. Check if they're in a position of influence. Now it's easy. Tell, if you'll have 10 people in positions of influence, then tell them, get this. We work together on 2, 3, 10 projects. I'm keen on moving into ACOM. Please let me know. I'm keen on moving to Jacobs. So then now it becomes a question of whether the position is advertised, they can leverage for you, or they can vouch for you in their forums that have worked with this person and that are a good fit for this position. Many times the connects that are worth any salt are implicit. They're not explicit.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah. Thank you.
yeah.
Truly, that has been eye-opening for me. Really, I think I used to do networking the other way around.
So
So
if
thank you
you
for
go to
that.
someone, I want you to picture it. You're in the streets. Somebody comes and talks to you and
Yeah.
asks you, "I want 1,000 shillings." The chances you'll give them are slim, if not none. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But
Mm-hmm.
picture a situation where you've been working with someone, they come to you and tell you they want 1,000 shillings. Who do you
Yeah.
think you're going to give the 1,000 shillings to?
Definitely the one you're working with, the one you know.
Yeah. So the thing is, it's all about leveraging on your relationships,
Yeah.
and obviously there has to be a competence that's backing up those relationships, but it's easier to get through your relationships because they can vouch for you from a more personal front. Huh?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. Um, Another question I had, Dennis, was we talked about the digital tools, the technical skills, build the competency, have the skills that is needed. Now we've talked about leveraging the relationships that you have. And now I wanted, because, when you're talking about how 3D modeling opened you up to the global space, I was thinking about maybe people who are not really interested in um,
Modeling,
the it, there is the I feel like there people who like the design, and the people
design,
who are like
like
into managerial contract, this
so
other
so
part.
I understand. So you're talking about project management, managing other. So
Exactly.
the engineering, if we put it simply, has the people who do the designs, the
Hmm.
designers, and the modelers, and then the people who check the people who are doing the design. But
Exactly.
if you're the one who's checking the people who do the designs and making sure they're beating their deadlines, you still need a background in design, because you cannot check work that you don't understand.
Hmm.
You understand? So you can
Yeah.
what I'm trying to tell you is you cannot run away from design. Design forms your foundation. It forms your design and supervision and contract management. They
Yeah.
form your foundation for checking timelines and essentially checking the logic of why something has to be delayed, why something
Hmm.
should be issued on a certain date. You understand? You
Yeah.
should be able to talk the language of the designers. Okay, first. Secondly,
Mm.
if you intend to pursue a project management space, your life is a bit harder, because it means that you have to be astute. You have to be one in 10,000, because typically the reason why people run away from design is because it's perceived to be a bit harder than project
Hmm.
management.
Yeah.
And so in
Hmm.
that case, for you to be a good project manager, you have to be really spot on in terms of getting the work done the day it's done. So that means you have to put your feelings away from delivery.
Hmm.
You need to get into the headspace of, I'm going to get this work done by all means necessary. And many times, if you actually find the really astute project managers, they are very shrewd, because they know that if the project is delayed, if the work is not done to a certain delivery standard, the buck doesn't stop with the designers. It still rests on their shoulders. Yeah?
Exactly.
So my my understanding of these project managers is you typically have to dissociate yourself from emotions, or you have to dissociate yourself from the emotionality behind the design.
Mm.
The guys who are doing the design, even if they're under immense pressure or stress, you still have to get your deliverable. And so the one thing I would advise anyone if they intend to pursue that is first you need to get thick skin. As in, you have to get very thick skin to the point where even if somebody is your friend, you're willing to call them out and tell them something that they may not want to hear at that time.
Mhm.
And then the
Okay.
second thing is you need to invest in like actually learning project management. So I told you the foundation is the design. You have to have a functional understanding of how designs are done, how work is supposed to be submitted, how work is supposed to be packaged. And then you now have to understand the timeline aspects. Project
Mm.
management has a lot to do with it: documentation, resourcing. If you're not willing to take the time to understand how one and two, it's almost like you have to be a strategist. You look at things from above and look
Yeah.
at what are the knock-on effects and what might cause a delay at the end, and
Mm.
then start mitigating it at the beginning. Yeah,
Okay.
a project manager needs almost like a third eye to see things from the top of the hill
Mm.
and not the from the work itself.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Got it. No. I think for me, I have like from this point onwards, I would like you to answer some more relaxed questions. But
Yeah.
before that, we have a question from Timothy. Timothy says, "Hello, engineers. I agree that BIM skills are vital to stay relevant in the construction industry. I wish to ask Engineer Muyonga if consideration of carbon impacts or embodied carbon designs are done abroad."
Wow. So this is now the rest of the world is moving into some crazy stuff, um, Timothy. So what you're saying is carbon footprint and how it affects the project is now being considered. They call it life cycle assessment. And so currently, what is happening is that you have to, in your designs, like for structural buildings especially, you have to say what the carbon footprint is from the buildings. And also, there's something right now, it's, at least in Australia, they've started with this thing called Open LCA, which is a program which shows disposal of waste, not even just carbon, but essentially the life cycle of when you have, putting it quite simplistically, I buy a phone. I mean, the phone is manufactured, it generates waste. How is that getting into the landfill? Once it's used, it stops being used, it's crushed. How does it get into to the landfill? And so the global market is now looking at the life cycle of the products and also the carbon footprint. Yeah. So yes, in putting it quite simply, is it's currently in use. There was a different team for the project I was working on Neom. There's a different team specifically who had this as their to-do list. Yep.
Okay, thank you. Um, and a comment from Engineer Ambrose Twitter. Great inspiring talk. Thank you, Engineer Ambrose, for tuning in. So now, Dennis, to the more relaxed questions. I wanted to ask you, what is it that was more shocking, like culturally? And I know that because you're talking about global work,
Mm,
we
mm,
need some cultural sensitivity. What was
yeah.
most surprising to you and what you had to adjust to in that sense?
Okay. First of all, and I'm saying this with all. I don't know, not to pontificate, but I don't see many Africans venturing other than Nigerians. Actually, the Nigeria here it's Nigerians and one or two Kenyans, but and then many guys from Egypt. So the one cultural thing I realized was, as in Africans aren't venturing out of Africa. Guys from Pakistan, India, Australia, UK, states are really in the international market. Really, most expatriates are coming from those countries. The states, UK, um, Australia, and Pakistan and India. And so the biggest cultural shock was just as in there are no guys who are black. And so I was just like, I mean, why are people so afraid of? Sometimes I feel like it's more of people are afraid of whether their skills will be relevant,
Mm-hmm.
and then so it's scary to go into a new place. You live there, you work there, and so you're feeling like if I lose my job, the knock-on effects are more dire. Like in Kenya, if you lose your job, you can go to the village somewhere. But
Exactly.
but in the on the global scene, if you lose your job, you have to fly back to Kenya. So I
Mm-hmm.
think it's more of a fear than a competence thing. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Ah, all right. Actually, that's so true.
Mhm.
Guilty as charged. um, some other thing that I wanted to know is, looking back now,
Yeah.
do you is there something that you kind of wish you knew before you started working globally? Something that you wish you were told, maybe that would have made it easier for you.
If I graduated from UN, I graduated in 2012.
Yeah.
If had I and have known, I would have ventured into the global market in 2012, immediately after graduation, because the I was, you know, I've been thinking for a long time that most Kenyan engineers are pacified. You're told you start from graduate engineer, then after graduate you become engineer, then senior engineer, then principal maybe. But as in
Mhm.
there's you're being told that wait your turn in the line. You get it? And so
Yeah.
if you're being told wait your turn in the line, it means that you'll also limit yourself in terms of your creativity. You're always working within the confines of a hierarchy, like a sensei, and so you'll always be working within the confines of what the sensei perceives as the best body of knowledge at that point.
Mm.
So you cannot explore, you cannot challenge the status quo. It's self-defeating. You might find yourself having a rejected report, but on the global platform, that doesn't exist to some extent. Obviously, there are the chief technical principals with the gray hairs and stuff, but
Mm.
the but generally, what this market is seeking is someone who can adapt and not just adapt fast. Yeah,
Okay. Yeah.
yeah,
But that's actually true, Dennis, because I see, when I looked at your experience,
yeah,
12 years, like 12 years of experience. If you had that in Kenya, I don't think you'd be anywhere close to where you are.
yeah. That's the thing. You see,
Mm.
when I became principal in 2024, so that means the by all metrics I had around 11 years experience, but it's not because, and I really need to say this categorically. I'm not an outlier by any metrics, and I just went to University of Nairobi. Like I'm just a normal guy completely.
Mm-hmm.
The difference is that these guys are looking for someone. I'm looking for, this is the problem. They pinpoint the problem. They tell you, I want you to help me solve this. So there are
Yes.
guys who are going to deflect. The larger majority of people are going to try and deflect behind all kinds of papers, and but
Yeah.
at the end of the day, when you go and uh, when you go and spar against your ego alone, I'm saying in the mirror, you'll tell yourself the truth. And the truth
Mm.
is, I have to come to a solution to this problem. Really, as in if I were to remove the whole screen, smoke screen, I'm gonna get a solution to this problem. That can do attitude is really what sets you apart in this market. I'm telling you, it's really, you're not going to try and deflect at this so and so is supposed to do it. No, no, no. This is what I'm solving.
Yeah.
And it has to be as clear as day for everyone.
Okay.
Mm,
Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much, Dennis.
yeah.
Um, I think that is it for today's talk. I don't know if our viewers have other questions, and I really hope you've we are motivated to just go into the global space, because personally I was actually waiting for you, Dennis, to tell us, okay, we need to have this and then this and then this, and what you have is still not adequate, but what I'm hearing, I mean, I don't know what you're waiting for. I hope everybody's just gonna come out of here and just go.
Do you know? I've
So
always
I,
believed. I've
yeah,
always believed that nini power is taken. Do you know, guys? Don't I don't think people understand this thing. There's a time. There's a time I was telling my dad, we are here now, we are here. As in, I was trying to tell him, we're not going to wait for you guys to tell us that we are ready to be on this. No, 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 that one we've left it for you guys. Us
yeah,
guys are here now. Eh? And so we're taking this thing, whether you want to give it or relinquish it, or we don't care whether now you're willing to hand the baton over. Us guys
hmm,
are taking it. And so my belief has always been, I'm not waiting for someone to tell me that you're ready now, you're baked. Now you can now finally rise to the occasion and become the principal. No, I'm
yeah,
not even waiting for your stamp of approval. I'm taking it whether you want to give it to me or not.
hmm.
Yeah, yeah,
That's the spirit.
yeah.
Thank you so much, Dennis. I have really had a great time, and not only a great time, I have learned a lot, and I hope that has been the case for everyone who joined us today. Thank you so much for making the time to join us here at Uhandisi Talks. I don't really think we have any more comments or questions. So maybe the viewers are open to contact you in case of anything, questions, connect on
Yeah,
LinkedIn.
yeah, no worries, no worries, no
Yes,
worries.
yes, yes. Oh, we
Mhm.
have one last comment. Engineer Maureen Mwangi. I think every young engineer should hear what engineer said. I am more than motivated. Same here. So thank you so much. Thank you so much, Dennis.
Okay,
Um, hopefully we have, I know people would like to hear from you more going forward.
no, it's okay.
So yeah, so we'll reach out in case of any requests. Bye bye. Asante sana.
Okay, okay, bye. Cheers.
All right, cheers.